Now in Diablo 4 there's absolutely nothing better than completely gearing up your character, trying to min-max them out and absolutely smashing things to pieces. For this season, Season 4, I wanted to put together a nice tasty barbarian build that helps you to swing away, absolutely decimate your foes, do all of the toughest content in the game and have a lot of fun whilst you do it. As you can see in the background, this is me taking on Diablo, and honestly he goes down very fast and there's still room to make this build even better. I had a lot of fun putting this together and trying to make the character as absolutely tanky as possible, as well as making him able to dish out an absolute ton of damage in order to get down some of the tormented and just the toughest things in the game. I've actually changed this build up quite a few times, trying to make it into the kind of perfected one that I really enjoyed playing, and this dual wield bash build is definitely one that's worth doing if you're trying to go quite far into the pit or you just want to tackle some of the content in the game very nice and easy and have a lot of fun with it. Now, before I go over everything you'll need for the build, I'm going to go through the rotation because that pretty much makes or breaks whether or not you'll enjoy the class. With this one, obviously you're going to do your buffs, you're going to have your challenging shout, which is going to need to be up almost constant because it's going to give you a massive amount of damage mitigation, as well as your rallying cry whenever you can, and your war cry for another really big boost to your damage. Then what you're going to want to do, make sure you're swinging for the fences because you're going to get a nice boost again to your damage and your speed when you're doing this because of what we've got going on in their aspects. So the main thing is going to be to throw out your steel grasp, then go into a rupture if you're in amongst some of the tougher enemies or the bosses. This is going to give you a nice amount of damage as well as a boost to your attack speed. Just absolutely go to town with your dual wield and you'll see a lot of damage very fast. Now in the background I'm going to show you a pit 100 run. I think that's where a lot of people will probably be at the moment, as 99, 100, thereabouts is probably the ones that are most farmable because you're going to get the most bang for your buck. After that, the health really starts to go up for those bosses, and although this one can definitely clear higher, I wanted to put this one on there just to show you what it's all about. But I have made it up to about pit 114 currently at the moment, so it can definitely go higher, especially if you're able to get some really nice greater Affix. For the stats on our character, however, unbuffed, we've got attack power of around about 68,000. Our armour is well over capped actually, the cap's about 9,230 I believe, and we've hit around about the 10k mark. That's just because I've rolled on the armour value at the tempering, which you definitely don't want to. For the life, I found having at least 60k plus was kind of needed at most times, and what I would say, if you did want to be going against some of the toughest enemies and going into the high upgrade for the pits, it may well be worth your time using a potion of fortitude just to boost it even further. Then you'll be hitting almost at 80k mark. You want to also invest as much as you possibly can into strength, so we're almost at the 2.6k mark, and our crit, even though I haven't got it on the screen, is over the 50%, and with everything else we've got going on, is probably around about 60 or maybe a little bit higher than that. Now for our first piece of gear, no matter what anyone tells you when they say you can just chuck whatever you want in here, it doesn't matter, you will always want to pick this up if you can, and that's going to be the Harlequin's Crest. I know already you're thinking great, it's an Uber, but don't forget this season you do have a guaranteed way to get an Uber if you wanted to, although it does take a little bit of a time to farm. In my opinion, it's well worth doing if you're going to see the season through for a while. I'll link that up top right just in case you need it, but if you know how to, it's just going to be by using your Resplendent Sparks. With the Harlequin's Crest, the massive thing about this is going to give you a nice bit of cooldown, which is good, but the best thing is going to be 20% damage reduction, and of course 4 ranks to all of your skills. If you can, whenever you're tempering, hopefully you're going to be getting that cooldown reduction, because that's the one you're mainly going to be aiming for. If you get 1 or 2 on resource generation, remember we're using a basic build, you don't want that, and I'd definitely say reset the item in order to try it again. Over to the chest piece, and you're going to want to put on Aspect of the Undying. This is going to help you to get back a lot of health. You're going to be swinging very rapidly with this, and you're going to be attacking and getting your health back as you go. This is going to give you up to 2% with every single hit and can make you nigh on unkillable, especially in some of the lower grade content. You're definitely going to want 1 armor affix somewhere in your gear, so if you can, try and chuck it on this or somewhere else further down the line. Also, I've got +6 to challenging shout, which is exactly what I was after. I wanted to make a really tanky boy, and this really does help you to do that, and it means you don't have to invest quite as much into that in order to reap the benefits. Try and chuck on challenging shout cooldown as well, because you're going to need it up as much as possible, and if you can get some ranks to concussion, that's going to absolutely round this off perfectly. Now over to probably the most integral piece, and this is going to be the Pain Gorgeous Gauntlets. These are absolutely amazing. They're going to give you a little bit to all of your stats, which is nice, but even better than that, it's going to give you attack speed, basic damage, and the icing on the cake, the one thing you're after, When you damage enemies with a non-basic skill, with us, which is most times going to be our Steel Grasp, then into our basic attacks, hit all marked enemies for up to a certain amount of damage. I've been lucky with this roll and got 200%, and it's going to last for 3 seconds. You're going to want to have this as high as possible, as it's going to be an absolute game changer. Without this build does not work in the slightest. With it, it's an absolute powerhouse. If you can, with the tempering, probably going to be aiming for that critical strike chance as much as possible. If not, basic damage or attack speed also works quite nicely. Now over to the pants, and you're going to want to focus on strength. Then you're definitely going to need some resistance to all elements, as this is going to help to round our resistances out. And other than that, I've got basic skills because obviously we're going to be focusing on our bash. But if you could get an absolutely amazing pair of pants, then you're going to be trying to get one with ranks to bash on it, as that'll be able to get one more than this one actually can. For your tempering, you're going to want to make sure that you put on 3 to imposing presence, as this is really going to boost your health. And then grab yourself some Steel Grasp, which can stun the enemies when you pull them in and make things a little bit easier. Remember, the aspect of the Iron Warrior is really going to help you to keep a bit of defensiveness about yourself, as it's going to grant you unstoppable, as well as some nice damage mitigation whenever you use that iron skin. Now for every other piece of gear that we've got on, I've put on the red gems in order to boost our health. For these, I've chucked on a couple of strengths in order to make us hit a little bit harder, give us a little bit of extra damage. For your boots, you're going to want strength, resistance to all elements once again, and what I like to put on it is also Warcry. This can really help. You want your Warcry up as often as possible, and being able to get 5 ranks into it really does help to boost your damage. And if you wanted to change some skills around, you could use the points that you were going to put into this in other places as well. For your tempering, you're going to want crowd controlled duration. This is going to help your challenging chat, and you're definitely going to want movement speed. If you've noticed, I haven't put movement speed on the boot, so if you do want a faster guide, then you're going to make sure that you take off Warcry and chuck it on there. But I found this to work really nice, and I like the extra damage about itself. We've gone with the hectic aspect, as it's really going to help us. We're constantly using our basic, and there we're able to get cooldowns much faster because our skills are often getting reduced by 2 seconds. Now over to our two-handed mace. You're going to want to focus on strength once again. Whenever you can get a greater affix on that, that's really going to help you out on most occasions. But other than that, you're also going to want to make sure that you've got maximum life and vulnerable damage on it as well. Vulnerable damage is going to be quite a high focus for us because it's really going to help to maximise the damage that we get from our Echo on our Pain Gorger gloves. They don't actually work too well with crit damage, so vulnerable damage, as well as having a little bit of crit about your build, works absolutely ideal. For the tempering, you're going to want to make sure you get damage to close enemies, but more than anything, and this goes to every single one of your weapons, and that's going to be your bash cleaves. You're going to make sure that you've got that on everything and try to roll it as high as possible and hit as many masterworks as possible on it, because the more you do, the more damage and the better it'll be for your build. For our aspect, we're going to be using the Moonrise aspect, as this is just going to give us a whole bunch more attack speed as well as some really nice extra damage that's going to be up almost constantly. Now over to our first one-handed weapon, and for this one we're going to be using Aspect of the Calm. This is nice and easy. It means that you're going to get 10% multiplicative damage, and if you stand still for 3 seconds, this is going to triple. On a lot of the bosses, this is going to be up quite often. On some of them, however, you will have to pop around the map, so you're going to have to be a little bit wary. Again, you're going to want strength. I've chosen to pick some damage up as well with this, and because I managed to get 2 greater affix, I've got one with critical strike damage as well. However, if you change to vulnerable, I do believe it would work out probably a little bit better in your favour. For the tempering, you're going to want to make sure you've got damage to close enemies, and again, round it off with bash and try to get as high as possible with it. Now in order to dual wield, we will need one hand to be a mace, and I've gone with the Mace of Elements. This, again, a little bit of extra damage every 7 seconds. We're going to have 30% multiplicative, 7 seconds on, 7 seconds off, but it still works out really well. Try to grab yourself some strength, damage again, and I've got critical strike damage because I haven't been able to find one with a really nice GA for vulnerable. But again, if you can pick up vulnerable, probably change it over to that, will work out best. Then another one to your damage to close, and bash to round it off again. Now for our amulet, I really like having strength on this. I must admit, it gives you an absolute massive amount. I think it's over 300 if you start hitting it with your kind of upgrades and stuff. And then on top of that, try to pick up some crit chance as well, as that's going to keep you above the kind of 50% mark, especially if you can get it with a nice great graphics. I've got damage again on this, but I would say if you can swap that out, probably swap it out for something else. I'll have a little look through, see which ones are good, and then I'll chuck in the text underneath. But I'm guessing it'll probably be something like attack speed or anything that can boost your damage. For your tempering, you're going to want damage to close, and grab yourself some imposing presence. I only managed to get 2 for this one. If you can get 3, especially if you can get with one of those upgrades when you're doing your masterworking, this can really help again to boost your overall health. For the aspect, we've gone for adaptability, as this is just going to help to keep our basic damage up, as we're going to be constantly using our basic, so it's going to be a nice increased damage without even needing to do anything. Over to our ring, and we're going to be using the Edge Masters for this aspect. Nice and easy, 20% constant, don't have to worry about it. And again, you're going to go for strength, critical strike chance, and then I grab myself some vulnerable. If you can, try and get some Warcry cooldown, as that's really going to help you to have that up more often, as we've got quite a lot of points going into it. And then you're going to want to grab yourself some damage whilst berserking when you're going into your tempering, as this is going to help us a little bit later on with something we've got in our Paragon board. For the second ring, Bold Chieftains is just always a great shout, no pun intended, as it's really going to help you to get your cooldowns back much faster. And honestly, this can really help you out in those tricky situations. Again, strength, I've put attack speed on this one, and vulnerable damage, as well as steel grasp if you can, and once more, damage to close enemies. Lastly, for our sword, and you're going to want the rapid aspect on this one, this is going to make you swing absolutely crazy, as it's going to give you 60% extra attack speed because it's on a two-hander. Grab yourself some more strength, some maximum life, as you're going to need some life somewhere in order to kind of take advantage of all of those multipliers we've got going on. Vulnerable damage, and then damage whilst berserking, and bash cleaves when you're going over to your tempering. As you can see, I was quite lucky with this, or very lucky should I say, and I managed to get 3 in a row with our bash. If you can, that's what you're kind of aiming for on all of them. However, it is slim to nigh on impossible, and I've only managed to do this once after spending a ridiculous amount of gold. For the gems on all of our weapons, chuck your basic damage into them, so that's going to be your topaz ones, as that's going to help boost your bash, which you're going to be using constantly anyway. Now over to your expertise, and I've just stuck with the tried and tested. We've gone with a two-handed axe expertise. This is really going to help you out. Obviously, we're going a little bit into vulnerable anyway, so this works absolutely ideal. However, if you wanted to, one I haven't tried but I did test it out in the range and it looked quite cool, was the one-handed axe as well. I don't think this will be quite as good, but if you want a little bit of speed about yourself, then this one might be worth checking out. Now over to our skill tree, and obviously you're going to want as many points in bash as is humanly possible. We've managed to acquire about 15, although I think you can get around about 16 or 17 depending on how you spec out, especially if you've got like greater affix to bash on your pants rather than the basic one I've got. Other than that, you're also going to want this one just here, the enhanced bash, as that's going to help you out to get a little bit of fortify. Not quite as good as when you're using two-handers, but it is definitely still worth taking. Other than that, we're going to bop all the way down, and we don't need to put anything in here. Instead, we're going to make our way down to this bit just here, our defensive skills, and we're going to be picking up as many imposing presents as we can grab. I've put in 3 of this one, and the rest is from our gear pieces. Grabbing martial figure is also going to help you out with a nice bit of damage reduction from those elites, and then we're going to grab ourselves 1 rank to iron skin, as well as enhanced iron skin, and finally tactical iron skin as well, in order to pop our health up very nice and easy. Moving over from here, and you're going to want 1 in outburst, and 1 in tough as nails, as this is going to be able to proc bleeding, giving you that advantage whenever you need it. Over to challenging shout, and with everything we've got plus a few points in it, you're going to want to put it all the way to 11, and then grab yourself enhanced challenging shout in order to give yourself a bit of extra life. Moving down from here, and I've just updated this because I had it slightly wrong. Warcry, we've put quite a few in this, but I've managed to put it all the way up to 13, item contributions 9, and it gives us a massive buff to our damage, giving you 33% multiplier. Of course, you're going to want to pick up enhanced Warcry for your berserking, and finally power Warcry is going to help you because whenever you're in amongst the thick of things with lots of enemies, you're also going to get an additional 10% multiplicative damage, which is nigh on almost always except for when you're fighting just the single bosses. Down from here again, booming voice, you're going to want all 3 of that just so you can pick up 24% extra on your shout durations. 1 in raid leader, as that can help you for a little bit of the downtime sometimes when you're not fighting things and sometimes you've got some kind of effect on you, and another 1 in guttural yell, just give you a little bit of damage reduction. Chuck 3 points in aggressive resistance, as that's going to give you 12% damage reduction whilst berserking, which is almost constant, and just up from here swiftness is going to give you 12% increased movement speed. You're definitely going to want this because we haven't got the extra one on our gear, but we have put one on with our tempering. Down from here again, you're going to want to go for 3 in pit fighter, and then grab 2 in slay and strike. I would have liked to pick 3 of this up, but I think the constant of the war cry probably outweighs this just a tiny bit. Now for our masteries, obviously we're going to be using Rupture, 1 point in this, then moving on to the enhanced, and finally the main reason we're using it is going to be Warrior's Rupture, because now whenever we use it, it's going to give us attack speed boost of 40% for 5 seconds. This can really help you out on those really high health enemies, and the AoE as well can help you tackle some of those groups for them. Then you're going to go all the way down, pick up Steel Grasp and the enhanced version, and then finally you can have Fighter Steel Grasp in order to give you that berserking, and obviously we've got the vulnerable from the one before. Over from here, and we've got Thick Skin, which is going to help us a little bit with our Fortify, and just down from there, Counter Offensive is going to give us a bit of additional damage whenever we're tackling those foes, and we're over 50% Fortify. Down again, and we're going to pick up a little bit of attack speed with our duelist, grab 3 of these, and over from here 3 in Wallop, and then 3 in Concussion, which we've got on our gear pieces once more. Lastly, for our Keystone passive, you're going to want to put on this one right here, Unconstrained, as it's going to increase Berserking's maximum duration by 5 seconds and increase its damage bonus by 100%. Overall, this is going to be your skill bar. You're going to have Steel Grasp, you're going to have War Cry, you're going to have Iron Skin, Challenging Shout, Bash as your main kind of damage type, and Rupture, which is really going to help out with those AoEs, as well as giving you a nice bit of additional attack speed whenever you use it. Now lastly, in case anyone doesn't know how to do it, I think probably everyone does by now, but in case you don't know how to dual wield, then all you gotta do, go up to Bash, make sure you're in this full menu rather than the kind of mini one, then you're going to assign your skill, go down and you have your selection, what you want to put it on. Like I said, you will need one single hand mace, otherwise this won't work whatsoever, but click on confirm and cycle whatever weapons you want to use it with. So if we want to use it on the two-hander, we'd do that. We're going to be using it on the dual wield, so we're going to go with these ones. Now going over to our Paragon board, and I'm going to try and not take too long on this because I think this video has gone on far longer than I originally intended. But the first tree is going to be just like that. As you can see, we're going to pick up the health, pick up all of the nodes that give us a little bit of additional strength, all the way up to the glyph, pick it up, and that one's going to be the one you want to put exploit in. This is going to help you to get vulnerable on everything. This alongside our Steel Grasp pretty much means everything's vulnerable at all times. Grab yourself enough dexterity in order to make this work, and then head out of the board just here. Just to make your life easy, I'll leave it on the board for a few seconds and then make my way out from there. Onto our next board, we're going to head all the way up and then grab this glyph right here, and in this one we're going to put in Cleaver. This is going to help us because we're using Nax. It gives you a nice little bit of increased critical strike damage, which is great for when we're using Bash without worrying about Steel Grasp and such. The board we're going to be putting this in is going to be this one, which is going to be Blood Rage. Blood Rage is definitely worth picking up as this really helps you to mow through those enemies, and unfortunately I'm missing a couple of points in this just because I need a little bit more on the Berserk because my gear didn't roll perfectly. Then you're going to head out over this way, pick up these nodes because it's going to give you a nice bit of additional health, make your way through, and this time we're making it all the way over to the board, which is going to be the Warbringer one. You don't want to pick this up though, instead you're going to make your way down and chuck in the glyph socket right here, Ambidextrous. 125% to magic nodes within range, which can help you if you want to pick up your resistances, gives you also a little bit of physical damage, and it gives you 8% while wielding one-handed weapons. Grab these nodes right here as well, in order to make sure you've got enough strength, and then just up from here, you're going to be able to pick up a nice bit of health again. Overall, the layout of the board is going to look just like this one. There will be a planner in the description as well if you need it, however it might not be straight away at launch as I'm going to take a few hours to update it. Moving down from here, and you're going to go all the way down and pick up this, which is going to be your Carnage node. This is going to help you absolutely amazingly because it's going to give you up to 16% additional attack speed whenever you're kind of hitting with critical strikes when you're berserking, which is going to be always again allowing you a massive boost to your damage. Grab a little bit of extra damage, and then for this one you're going to want to socket in Territorial in order to give yourself some damage reduction and damage to close enemies. Back up to our Blood Rage board, and we're heading out on the left hand side here, and you're going to want your board to look exactly like I've got here. Again, this is going to be perfect because it's going to allow you to pick up all of the health nodes just down this way, make your way up to the top here, grab yourself some nice critical strike damage with this glyph socket right here, which is going to be rough, and while you're here grab yourself some damage reduction whilst healthy. Now with this one I might be changing this soon, so you might want to check out some of the other ones to put in this place, because where I've only recently found out that the Pain Gorges doesn't actually work off of Crit Strike, you might want to try something else, see if additional damage to something works better in this slot. If it does, swap this out for something else in order to see which works best. But we have got a lot of crit rate going, so in most instances this still works out amazing. Moving up from here, you're going to go on to the next build, and this one is going to be the Decimator build. Whenever you make an enemy vulnerable, your damage is going to be increased by 10% multiplicative for 5 seconds. If you overpower them, it's also going to give you another 10%. Over to the left here, you're going to chuck in the Glyph, which is going to mean your Berserking gets extra damage and you get some nice damage reduction. Pick up both of the rare nodes just here, as that's going to give you a nice bit of extra damage reduction, and just down here is going to give you extra vulnerable damage. Make your way out, but on your way out grab these ones right here, this is going to give you a little bit of extra health, and then onto your last build you're going to bop all the way down, pick up a little bit of extra health. You're not even worried about these, to be perfectly honest, with the resistance, but because it's on its way you might as well pick up the extra health, and then go into Flawless Technique, which is going to allow you to get a little bit of extra crit strike, which is great when you're on those single targets or just using your rapid bash overall. If however you didn't think that you wanted this and you wanted it to be a little bit more damaging, then you'd go this top way and grab some of these, which is going to be a little bit of extra damage with your one hand or a little bit of speed. Or what you could do is completely take these out and take out the ones all the way down the bottom here, just over on this board, because ultimately you're just using these for health. So depending on what you've got going on with your gear, you might want to take these out and then you can slot in a completely different board here, or just turn this board round and then use the glyph socket in order to give you 7 boards. Right, hopefully that's helped a few of you guys and girls out. This works absolutely amazing. It clears pretty much all of the content in the game. I've only got to around about pit 113 or 14 at the moment, so to get further I do think you need to start either heading a little bit more into bleed or just kind of making sure you've got more greater affixes than I have. But works amazing on Uber bosses and Tormented, and is a really nice build to play with. As always, hopefully it's helped a few of you guys and girls out. For All Things Gaming, take care. I'll see you on the next day.